In your walk with Christ, you're going to change, continuously change into who God wants you to be. Could vary from season to season. It could be steady throughout several different seasons, but in your walk with Christ, you are going to change. And people that have been around you for a while, they should be able to see that change in you. Now, when you're making progress towards who you're supposed to be, who Christ wants you to be, the enemy, the devil, will use things from your past to try to bring you back down, to try to make you backslide, to try to pull you away from Christ, because that's what he wants. That's what the enemy wants. The enemy does not want to see you draw closer to God. Now, the enemy uses spiritual warfare. An example could be old habits, old ways of thinking. The enemy does not want you to overcome the bad things in your past. The enemy wants you to think that you are not worthy of having a relationship with God. An example of spiritual warfare that the enemy uses is intrusive thoughts. Like if you had problems with anger or depression, the enemy will randomly place thoughts into your mind that could trigger your anger or your depression. Those intrusive thoughts could happen at a moment's notice. When they show up, you'll think, where did that come from? Now, when this happens, you need to think of it as a good thing, because it's a good thing in a way, because when the enemy comes after you, that means you're onto something. That means you're making some serious progress towards a relationship with Christ. You're making serious progress towards who God wants you to be. Now, the enemy is a defeated foe. The enemy has nothing to offer but lies and trickery. And these intrusive thoughts, you need to be able to hold those thoughts captive. It's going to be easier said than done. That's why we're called to put on the armor of God. There's the helmet, the breastplate, the sandals, the belt. I mean, even if you keep the armor of God on at all times, the enemy's going to keep coming at you to try to find chinks in the armor. And when the enemy finds the chink in the armor, he's going to focus on that. And you always need to focus on God regardless of what happens, if it's good or bad, always go to God. And even though it's easier said than done, try to take those thoughts captive. Learn to recognize when something is from the enemy, and learn to recognize when something is from God. Because when something is from the enemy, it's going to be disguised as something good. The enemy isn't always going to make it obvious that it's from the enemy. Sometimes it's packaged so well. Sometimes it's packaged to make it look so good that you don't even think about the possible negativity. A few things to consider. Stay blessed, friends.